The amnesty announced in Caemlyn for all male channelers was expected to draw many men under the wing of the Dragon Reborn, including the recent False Dragon. The Shadow Isle, being pushed back to Kinslayer's dagger, were able to take the field again, leading to a clash that would change the face of the Westlands forever. In the latest episode of our series on the Wheel of Time, we'll give you a closer look at the creation of the Black Tower, tell the tale of Rand's clash with Sammael, and show you one of the most important clashes before Tarmon-Gai'don, the Battle of Dumai's Wells. As the Trolloc survivors were being pursued by the Isle warriors, a certain short and thin man came to the palace to pursue the false dragon, Mazrim Taim, on the orders of the ruler of Saldea, Tenobia-Si-Bashir Khazadi. That man was one of the 5 great captains, Davram Tigalin Bashir, ruler of Bashir, Tyr and Sidona. After a brief exchange of words with Rand, he offered him his service at the head of 9,000 horsemen who were stationed near Caemlyn in the Brame Wood. Sometime later, Lord Bashir brought Mazrim Taim before the Dragon Reborn, who, having learned of the amnesty, decided to take advantage of it. In addition, the former False Dragon offered training to all men willing to take lessons from Rand. As a gesture of goodwill, he presented himself with a Quaindiar seal. In return, Althor took him to The Farm. The Farm was a place located 2 leagues or 8 miles south of Caemlyn, where men who wanted to learn to channel the One Power gathered. Taim decided to see if any incoming candidates possessed the spark. The first was Dama Flynn, an elderly Andoran who had spent 40 years in the Queen's Guard. On Rand's recommendation, Mazrim Taim remained at the farm, training all those who possessed the spark. At Rand's next appearance, he asked for permission to leave the place, which began to be called the Black Tower by some, to find potential recruits in other villages. Returning to the capital of Andor, Rand met with a delegation of Aes Sedai sent by the sorceresses whose headquarters was Saladar. We will devote a separate episode to talk about why some Aes Sedai moved from the White Tower to Saladar. The Dragon Reborn also met with Daelin Taravin, one of Andor's most powerful noblewomen, who revealed to him the history of Tigrain Mantir. Althor then realized that the former daughter-heir of Andor was his real mother. Not long after his conversation with Daelin, he decided to go to Cahian. Upon arrival, he handed over the duty of managing the state to Bereline Sir Paindrag Peyran, the first of Mayenne, who had not left his side since Rand's capture of Kalandor. More urgent was the reception of a delegation of Aes Sedai from Tarvalon, numbering a dozen wizards, led by Coirin Sealdane. On behalf of Elaida do Avrini Aroyhan, the new Amelin seat, they invited him to the White Tower, making promises of assistance while offering him a chest full of gold. After the negotiations failed to go the Aes Sedai's way, he returned to Caemlyn, where he was almost immediately attacked by the Grey Man. The assassin was killed by Mazrim Taim, who used a balefire to do so. Soon after, he made the decision to head back to Cahian, when Min revealed to him that there were already 13 Aes Sedai in the capital of Andor, and shared with him a vision that something bad was about to happen. Leaving, he wrote a letter to Mirana Ambre, the leader of the delegation, informing her that he was leaving and that she could come to him with no more than 5 other sisters. In addition, he took with him Min, Perrin, Fail, Loyal, and 500 Maidens of the Spear. Upon arriving in the city, he met with Bereline, whom he rebuked for neglecting his duties. For 10 days, he brushed off Coirin's requests for a second audience, hoping that Mirana and her embassy would arrive. He wanted to play up the 2 ministries in such a way that he could deal with the problem, which was Sammael, without other distractions. When he finally allowed the Aes Sedai messenger to arrive, something happened that he could not have predicted. When Coirin, accompanied by Galina Caspan, the former leader of the Red Ajah, and another sister, entered his chamber, he was immediately shielded from the true source, tied by the One Power, and locked in a trunk that had been carried out of the Palace of the Rising Sun in Splendor, where he was staying. Elmindreda was also taken along with him. So that no one would get suspicious, the Aes Sedai feigned indignation, complaining about how Rand had left again without a word, and that they would not allow themselves to be treated this way, and would leave if the Dragon Reborn did not return within a few days. It wasn't until 6 days later, at the Kahinian Festival of Lights, that Bereline realized that Rand had been captured, bringing to Perrin's chamber Althor's sword, and the belt that the dragon never parted with. Ibarra made sure that news of the incident did not spread around the palace and the city, and together with the Kahenian lord Debrain Taborwin, Ruark and Cerilia, the Wise One of the Isle, organized a small team with the goal of recapturing Rand and Min. In order not to arouse undue interest, a detachment of 500 men-at-arms belonging to the House Taborwin was assembled outside the city, as well as 200 winged guards from Mayenne under the leadership of Havian Nurel, who set off in the morning, on the second day of the Festival of Lights. At noon they were joined by the Isle, 6,000 in number, led by Ruark. 1,000 were Maidens of the Spear, and the rest were Siswayaman, the spears owned by the Dragon, a community of Isle who considered themselves subordinate only to the Dragon Reborn. Along with the Isle warriors came 94 Wise Ones. During the chase, Perrin used his wolf skills and contacted the wolves to guide them on how far ahead of them the Aes Sedai were. On the 7th day of the ride, the pursuit group encountered a group of people, both men and women. As they approached, Perrin spotted 2 flags, the former flag of Manatherin and a banner with the wolf's head, Perrin's personal mark. The men of Two Rivers, led by Danil Lewin, accompanied by 9 Aes Sedai of Saladar and their warders, joined the pursuit group. On the 10th day of the chase, Perrin heard a message from the wolves. "Come now, many two-legs, many, 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 come now." The reason the wolves hurried Ibarra was because of 40,000 Shaido Isle, accompanied by 300 Wise Ones, led by Savannah, wife of Suladric, the last Shaido chief. The Shaido attacked the Aes Sedai from the White Tower, seeking to capture Rand. This was Savannah's plan to strengthen her position among the Isle by marrying the Karakan. Moreover, it was a violation of the agreement she had made with the White Tower's messengers. The Shaido were to escort the group to Tar Valon. However, the Aes Sedai were not alone in defending themselves against the Isle. In addition to the 39 sorceresses, there were also 582 younglings under the command of Gawyn Trekand. When Perrin's troops arrived at the battlefield, they noticed that the Aes Sedai had formed a wagon fort near Dumai's wells, and from behind the fortifications were hurling fireballs and lightning bolts from the sky at the attacking Isle. Perrin quickly devised a simple plan. The Isle warriors and the armed Kahenian and Mayenian troops were to strike straight at the Shaido and break into the camp to retake Rand, while the Wise Ones and Aes Sedai from Saladar had to provide magical support, and the archers from Two Rivers would fire from a distance. When the men-at-arms, led by Perrin, attacked the Shaido, Ibarra sent a message to the wolves to come. The animals struck the Shaido's back at the same moment that arrows from Two Rivers fell on the heads of Savannah's warriors. Golden Eyes, Loyal, and the rest cut their way through the horde of warriors to reach Rand as quickly as possible. In the heat of battle, he managed to spot Karuna Nachiman of the Green Ajar and the other Aes Sedai of Saladar, who broke down his command and followed him into a direct clash. This was because Aes Sedai could only use the One Power as a weapon when their lives were in danger. Immediately afterwards, a few steps in front of Perrin, a gateway appeared, through which a black-clad man with a sword in his hand fell out. He was quickly killed by the Shaido, but immediately after him, several others jumped out of the portal and began killing Isle with their weapons and the One Power. As the battle continued in earnest, Rand, while still locked in the box, began to feel the shield that separated him from the One Power weakening. When he sensed that only 2 Aes Sedai were keeping him away from Sidon, he managed to bypass that barrier and draw from the true source, completely destroying the magical shield and the chest he was locked in. Immediately after breaking free, he spotted several Aes Sedai, including Koiren, whom he shielded from the One Power, having no idea that the Isle who were attacking the camp were Shaido. Only a direct attack on him by several warriors made him realize what was going on. When the Aes Sedai of the White Tower were separated from Saidar by Rand, Gawyn Trekand ordered the younglings to withdraw and attempt to break through the Shaido. At the same moment, Mazrim Taim appeared at Rand's side and secured the Aes Sedai encampment by separating the combatants from each other with a magical dome, under which some men-at-arms and Isle from Perrin's pursuit party, along with the Aes Sedai from Saladar, were also placed. Althor estimated that Taim had brought with him about 200 Ashaman, as all those belonging to the Black Tower were called. After a brief conversation with Perrin, who explained how they got here and who among those who had come to rescue the Dragon Reborn were fighting on the other side of that barrier, he ordered, "I told you to make weapons, Taim. Show me just how deadly they are. Disperse the Shaido. Break them." The former false dragon ordered the Ashaman to form an array and raise the banner. As the Shaido moved on the camp, Mazrim gave another order: Ashaman, kill. The first row of Shaido exploded. Only pools of blood remained of the threefold land warriors. After the first, subsequent ranks disappeared in fountains of blood. When Savannah's Isle finally threw themselves into flight, Taim gave another order, and a fountain of fire arose from under the feet of the fleeing warriors, followed immediately by another, throwing the Shaido into the air. The slaughter would have continued, but Rand ordered the massacre to stop. After the battle, the Aes Sedai of Saladar came to congratulate Rand on his victory, but Rand reprimanded them, telling them that their place was among the sorceresses of the White Tower, referring to the letter he had left in Caemlyn for Morana. Looking at Elida's envoys kneeling before Rand, Mazrim Taim addressed Karuna and the accompanying bearer Harkin. "Kneel and swear allegiance to the Lord Dragon, or you will be knelt." Thus, all 9 Aes Sedai of Saladar swore allegiance to the Dragon Reborn. The exact losses are unknown. All that is known is that 151 Maidens of the Spear who came with Perrin were killed. Of the Aes Sedai supporting Elida, 3 were killed, 20 were captured by Rand, including Coirin Saildin, 3 were stilled and given to the Wise Ones, and 12 escaped. 1 Aes Sedai, Galina Caspan, was captured by the Shaido. Shaido losses are unknown, but knowing that they were attacked from several directions, and above all, looking at the effectiveness of the Ashamen, it can be assumed that they were huge, but they were not completely smashed, and were to cause problems yet. After the Battle of Dumai's Wells, Rand, accompanied by the pursuit group and Ashaman, returned to Caerhien. On the spot, it turned out that Lady Colavir Saigan had seized the throne of her kingdom, having previously allied herself with Elida. The Dragon Reborn sentenced her to exile for this, but the sentence did not come to fruition, as the woman committed suicide by hanging herself in her chamber. Colavir had no difficulty seizing the throne, as it remained vacant. Rand did not seize the crown for himself, announcing that Elaine Trakand would take the throne. Not wanting to favour any of the local families, he decided to support the daughter heir of Andor, despite the fact that no one had considered her. At the same time, the legendary Aes Sedai of the Green Ajah, thought by many in the White Tower to have died many years ago, arrived at the Sun Palace. Cadsuane Melaidrin was recognized by many, not just from Aes Sedai circles. She decided to support the Dragon Reborn with her advice and experience. This was to prove extremely difficult, as Rand decided to divest himself of any emotion, and like a cold stone, guide humanity to Tarmon Gaidon. The meeting between the two was to be postponed, however, as Althor moved to Rhuidean, using the One Power to obtain 2 Ta'angreal, called Access Keys. These magical items that Asmodean had previously wanted to obtain, one for the Channeler of Sidin and one for the Channeler of Saidar, were to give access to Choidan Kul. Choidan Kul were 2 Sa'angreal created during the War of Power, looking like statues of a man and a woman. During the Third Era, half buried, the female statue was located on the island of Tremalking, while the male statue was discovered partially unearthed in Caerhien, near the village of Tremoncian. Choidan Kul allowed the channeling of an incredible amount of the One Power. According to Lanfear, with this Sa'angreal, one could challenge the Dark One, or even the Creator. Shortly after his return, the Dragon Reborn got into an argument with Perrin, forcing him to leave the Palace of the Sun. The whole incident was orchestrated by friends, as Rand wanted to deal with a problem, which was the Prophet of the Dragon. Meseme Degar, who, after separating from the group, went to Gildan, had taken control of part of that kingdom, and assembled a numerous but poorly trained force. At the same time, Rand went to the docks to meet the Atha Anmier, the Sea People, on their ships. They sailed up the river to Caerhien, wanting to help the Dragon Reborn, whom they called Coromor, but negotiating the terms of assistance according to their own tradition. After agreeing on the most important issues, Rand left the ship, leaving 2 of the Aes Sedai, Rafella Kindal and Marana Ambre, to complete negotiations with the extraordinary ambassador from the Mistress of Ships of the Atha Anmier, Harin Din Tugara Two Winds. According to Min, they were to remain loyal to Rand and bring the negotiation of the bargain to a successful end. Leaving Caerhien with Min, Althor went undercover to a camp of lords who rebelled against him. The leaders of the rebellion were Darlin Cisnera, Tyrian High Lord, and Cahian-born Toram Riatin and Caroline Damodred. During the visitation, a sudden attack by Shadar fell on the camp. The leaders, along with Rand, Min, Cadsuane and 2 other Aes Sedai, managed to escape, but immediately afterward, Althor was attacked with a ruby-hilted dagger by Padan Fain. The wound he inflicted was expected to result in a quick death, but the former merchant, who had abandoned the Dark Friend's path, hit the wound the boy received from Sammael during his clash with the Forsaken over Falm. Cadsuane and the Aes Sedai who accompanied her were almost powerless. They managed to keep the Dragon Reborn alive, but nothing more than that. The boy was taken to the Sun Palace, where he was placed in the hands of Damar Flynn. The Ashaman managed, using the One Power, to heal the boy enough for him to function. He was able to do so by forcing the 2 forces in the wound to fight each other. However, he was not able to completely heal the Taverin. After scouting the rebellious forces, the Dragon Reborn decided to deal with the problem, which was Sammael. He decided to use once again the plan that Matrim Calthon had outlined before attacking the capital of Andor. This time, however, the main striking force was not to be the Isle, but the Legion of the Dragon. The Legion's members consisted of men who had come to the Black Tower but did not have a spark, and still wanted to serve the Lord Dragon. The force was stationed near Caemlyn, where it was trained by Davram Bashir based on Mat's idea. The soldiers were armed with crossbows and short swords. Their defences consisted of a breastplate hidden behind a blue cloak with a dragon embroidered on the chest. Using the One Power, Rand opened the gateway in Illian, allowing the Saldean cavalry of Bashir and 15,000 soldiers of the Legion to attack the city. Despite the fact that this was the first clash for this formation, which was a little over a month old, they performed admirably. However, they failed to capture Sammael, who fled to Shadar Logoth. Rand followed in his footsteps. After reaching the ruined capital of Aridol, Rand began his search for the Forsaken. He had little time, as evening was approaching, as was the time when the Mashadar would begin circling the city. While searching for the Forsaken, Rand al'Thor nearly died, but he received unexpected help from a young man named Moradin. The Dragon Reborn later encountered Sammael, and after a brief battle, managed to weaken him. But it was not he who put him down, but Mashadar, preventing the Dark One from resurrecting his servant. Shaitan, if he wanted to, could incarnate the souls of his servants into new bodies, but he didn't always have the desire to do so, or, as in this case, didn't have the opportunity. One of the Forsaken brought back to life was Sammael, who went by the name Moradin, as well as Agenor and Balthamel, using the names Osangar and Arengar respectively. After Sammael's death, Rand returned to Illian, where the Council of the Nine gave him the Laurel Crown, which the Dragon Reborn renamed the Crown of Swords. Their decision was prompted by the disappearance of the king, Matin Stepanios den Belgar, and Rand's order was given to the High Lords of Tyr to send grain to Illian, in a way ending the age-old war between the 2 countries. The creation of the Black Tower and the Battle of Dumai's Wells echoed loudly across the Westlands, and the Aes Sedai swearing submission to the Dragon Reborn was expected to set a new course in history. The Illian takeover, however, had now brought Rand's subjugated territories into the immediate vicinity of the lands seized by the Shonchan, putting the 2 powerful forces on a collision course. The next episodes will focus on Perrin's dealings with the Shaido and the Prophet, as well as on how the White Tower was divided and how Egwene Alvear managed to reunite it. More videos on the Wheel of Time series are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.